Once upon a time, in an village, the villagers despised the worship of lesser gods. They therefore showed much interest in attending church. There was only one church building in the village, where the majority of the villagers who were interested in church worshipped. They went to church every Sunday and had other gatherings in the church within the week. They gathered for prayers and Bible studies. Asempa, an indigene of the village, was the leader in the church. He led them well. He was a good man. The church grew under the leadership of Asempa. People enjoyed attending church and being in the presence of God. They all loved Asempa. However, the church headquarters in the city thought that their union in the village had grown, so there was a need for a trained and educated pastor to be posted there to enhance their worship. The villagers gathered and built a house just close to the church in waiting for the pastor. Pastor Obed was therefore transferred to Ann village for his ministerial course. He was warmly welcomed by the villagers. They accommodated him. The next day, the villagers, returning from their farms, brought foodstuffs for him. Pastor Obed was glad for their love and kindness. However, one thing that bothered the villagers was that Pastor Obed did not come with his wife. He told them she was a doctor, so she could not follow him to wherever he went to. They were worried about how he would prepare meals and clean the house. The women in the village sat for a meeting and came out with a plan to help the pastor. They divided the work amongst themselves. Each day, a woman from a house would go to the pastor's house and clean, wash his clothes, and prepare his meals. The pastor always thanked the whole congregation for what the women were doing, and also their husbands who allowed them to come and do such activities. However, the pastor, after some time, could not hide his bad behavior. Pastor Obed slept with some women who came to help him in the house. He could not stop himself from practicing his awful behavior. He slept with women who came for personal consultation. Meanwhile, some of the women were resilient and tough, and therefore fought and resisted him from performing such a dirty act. But then, he also went into most of the women who seemed to fear him because he was a pastor. Some others gave themselves to him with the thought that they were respecting a man of God. One day, in a fateful afternoon, Pastor Obed raped a woman who had come for counseling in the house. The woman, in her painful state, cursed Pastor Obed and left the house. Pastor Obed, however, mocked at her and said, "You idiot! If you had allowed me to do it willingly, would you go through any pain?" He laughed and said, "Do you know how long I have been in this game? And you are cursing me, thinking it would work. Foolish woman." 3 days after the incident, Pastor Obed fell very ill. But then, most of the villagers had stopped going to help him in his house, and some even left the church. They could not give any genuine reason to their husbands when they asked them about their sudden change. The church was at a peak of collapsing. The villagers all gathered and went to visit Pastor Obed. When they got there, his condition was very bad and strange. He was vomiting sperms every minute. He could not control himself, nor help himself. He was actually dying. However, he knew his atrocities had caught up with him. The villagers were surprised. They could not grasp what their eyes were seeing. They all went out for a short discussion. The women confessed what he did to them and what he had been doing. Upon hearing all the stories from the women, They got disappointed and angry, and therefore left the house to their various homes without helping him. 2 days later, they decided to forgive him and also help him. Upon reaching the house, they sensed a very bad scent coming from his room. Some quickly entered the room and saw Pastor Obed's corpse lying on the floor. They quickly called the people who brought him and explained what happened. They were sad and ashamed. They came and took his corpse away to his hometown. The villagers informed them they did not want any pastor from anywhere near their village anymore. They went back to their normal way of doing service with their leader Asempa. The villagers attended church with so much love and joy afterwards. The lessons to be learned from the story is that we should not let our titles determine what we should do. We should not be controlled by our titles and positions. However, we should not be afraid of people because of their titles and positions. We should always have the courage to stand up for what is right. And also, we should not be led by fear in any way. And lastly, we should always live an exemplary life. Whatever we do, there are consequences. We always reap what we sow.